Yo, what's poppin', guys? Sizzle here. Today I'm going to be talking about Mei and kind of my thoughts on the character, if I can find her. Mei's kit's pretty straightforward. She can right-click to shoot a projectile. It's relatively fast, does about the same damage as a McCree's shot to both the body and head. Right, you can see 3 shots to the body, and if you headshots, 1 headshot, 1 body. The difference is, I think her headshot does 150, which means it can one-shot tracers, but the amount of hits it takes to kill someone's always about the same. Since I guess I don't get to talk about, I guess I don't get to talk about her because I found the game so fast. Her left click will slow people and goes through stuff like defense matrix and deflect because it's a beam type attack. It slows people, does some solid-ish DPS, doesn't freeze them anymore, which is great. Her left shift makes her immortal, puts her in ice blocks, makes her immortal, and heals her back to full health. And also restores her ammo. So you can see if I shoot this left click, which is the beam, you can see that's the beam right there doing its work. And I press left shift, you can see reloading in the bottom right. You don't get a full reload, but you get some solid amount of reload. You're immortal in that block, and then you would heal back up to your full 250. And by the way, Mei has 250 health. She has an extra 50 compared to most other DPS, which I average out at 200 at the moment. Then her E is an ice wall that you can use to block people, you can use to boost yourself up, you can use to boost your teammates up, and just do a lot of very fun stuff. The thing with ice walls is a bit of high amount of health. It takes a while to break the wall. You can break it by shooting it, but it does take quite a lot to break. With like 4 or 5 people shooting it, it normally takes about 2 seconds to break, which is quite a lot of time, to be honest. And that's kind of my only problem with Mei. You would think, because Mei is commonly referred to as a counter to Rein because of her wall, you know, where she can wall people off, kind of the way a wall up their Matra. Very easy to wall off Reinhardt in a similar fashion. But you'd think because of the wall, which is commonly referred to as a counter to Rein, that I would hate this character. I would think like, oh, she's so bullshit or whatever, because she is very great at countering Rein because of that wall. And kind of forcing Rein to stay somewhere where he doesn't want to be when he doesn't have shield or whatever. Just basically catching anyone who's out of position that doesn't have mobility. If you wall Genji, he's just gonna like wall climb or dash over it. If you wall like a Junkrat, he can jump over with mine. Yeah, I mean, she does solid damage. She's a solid amount of health. She is a projectile character, so it's a bit more fair. Her left click can be useful at times, and especially against, you know, things people don't like too much, like balls or whatever. There's a lot of things you can do there. Her wall can allow for some very creative plays, and also just, you know, kind of siphoning people off. It can catch people, you know, that are overcommitted, that are a bit too far in front of their team, a bit too far away from their team, whatever. Like here, to some degree, it got rid of Ram. You could also break it on command, by the way. And her ults, you throw it down the ground. You know, it makes a circle, and it freezes anyone in that circle. Yeah, you could also use wall as like almost like a second way to save yourself. You can wall yourself off from others. Like if you're in like a 1v1, you're in like 5 health. You can just wall between the 2 of you, and because wall is so much health, you can just kind of walk away from them depending on where you're fighting them. But overall, pretty decently fun here to play. The wall does allow for a lot of creativity, and honestly isn't that cringe. It only rewards you if you're... Sorry, it only really punishes you hard if you're super out of position and your team's not able to help you. Her damage feels just about right. It's like I said, it's about McCree's damage, but a little bit higher because it's a projectile that's harder to hit. And because, you know, her damage isn't too great, her upside is a little bit of self-sustain in the form of her left shift that heals her. The reload on it's just like a neat little side effect. And then, yeah, you can see like right here, most characters can't do that little thing I just did there, where I went up to the Ana. Let's see right here, let me like generate, get my stuff back, and get him, right? Feels pretty good. You got a good amount of self-sustain, a good amount of team play with wall, you know, and the slow is the one thing that is kind of cringe depending on the character. Like if you're on ball and she's just holding left click like this, you basically just can't go there because it kind of grinds you to a halt. But that's been changed a lot over time, and at this point, it feels mostly fine. The only real thing, like I said, the only real problem I have with Mei, I think the problem a lot of people have with her, is that her wall has mostly the health it had in Overwatch 1. It's a little bit too much health, just straight up. Right? It should not have as much health as it does. I think health should be lowered pretty substantially. without like a damage boosted bastion or something, or literally everyone shooting, like, because the wall is segments, you can see there's like 4 or 5 little portions of it, and each segment has its own health. They have a little bit too much health. It's very rare that you can break a wall in time in this game. In Overwatch 1, when you had a 6th person that could also shoot the wall, and you had, you know, other tanks to help and like bubble and whatnot, it was a lot more easy to kind of play around it. But in Overwatch 2, with 1 tank and 1 less person to help shoot the wall, the extra health is a bit excessive, and it means, like, you know, if you get walled, you're going to stay walled. I like the utility of boosting up your team and yourself. I also like the utility of kind of saving yourself with it by blocking people off. And it would still maintain that by losing some health. It would just lose the ability to, you know, like separate someone for like 10 seconds. You can see, like, pretty punishable hero. If I didn't have both supports healing me there, they would have killed me for sure. That's more like a support thing than a Mei thing. You have some level of self-sustain, which is also neat, because you could self-sustain a little bit and wait for your supports to get back to you. That guy just sucks, to be honest. You don't have enough health that you survive Widow headshots. That guy just keeps missing. But yeah, her right click feels very satisfying to use and hit people with. It doesn't feel too unsatisfying to play against. The left click slowing is still kind of... Oh, does he want to... Is that what he... Oh, pedal platform. I didn't realize that's what they'd said. You can see, like, against this Widow, like, I mean, I'm not aiming perfectly. Neither is that guy. He's gonna shatter, right? Yeah. See, what is he cooking? He's just mad that life you're in. Okay, life room, please. Thank you. Yeah. Overall, solid to play as. Not too bad to play against. You might be surprised to hear me hear that. But it's my genuine belief, as someone who plays Rhyme, that if the wall health is slightly lowered, I'm okay with every other part of her kit. Like, the Immort makes you stationary. It's very easy, if she uses it at the wrong place, wrong time, to punish a Mei and make it so she definitely, like, would die the second she's at an ice block. Her ults is fine. It can be kind of insane, some of the places you can put it, some of the ground it can cover. You can see right here, hit scan, I would be hitting this McCree. Projectile, even point blank, you have to kind of aim it quite a lot. Any of the value. But yeah, it's just a feel-good character. It feels fine to play against. Generally, a lot of characters in the cast I have no problems with. All the videos before this I've been covering are characters I just didn't like and I wanted to talk about. And at this point, since I'm just going to try to cover everyone before Season 9, where hypothetically, if the leak that was talked about was real, like all the characters are going to change so significantly that the game might even function completely. And if that's real, I want to be able to talk about all these characters, my thoughts on them before those changes, you know, back when the game was the way it is. And overall, most characters in this game, non-problematic to me. There's a few that are problematic, there's a few characters that are mostly non-problematic, and with 1 or 2 number changes, I think would be completely fine. Mei is one of those characters, right? 1 change to her wall health, just lowering it a little bit. I'm not suggesting, you know, you can one-tap the wall or something. You can also use her wall and her ice block to block stuff like anti and sleep, which I'm a fan of. Like, it's basically like having like 2 barriers almost to block stuff with. Feels very nice. Yeah. Maybe I become a Mei main at the end of this season. Like, I didn't die that game. Everyone else on my team died. Everyone else had shit happen. But I fucked, bro. I ate. This is my first game of Mei in, like, a while. I never really run around ladder or anything. I normally just stick to my 3 heroes being Junkrat, Kree, and Torb, with me being a very bad Kree. But I just gotta enjoy myself, man. That was a solid game. Felt nice to hit the right clicks. Felt nice whenever I was walling myself. I didn't think any of my walls were too bad to play against. Like, I don't think I did any wall that was particularly awful, because they didn't really overcommit at any point, right? When you're playing against a Mei, all you have to do is not overextend, and most of the walls just kind of go away. I do just think that it doesn't need as much health as it has, right? It's the same problem I kind of have with Petal, where I think both the abilities could probably lose about 30% of their health, right? Make it like 70% as much as it currently is. And then I think they're way less problematic. If they're actually breakable, if you have enough people to focus them down, I think that's a good thing, right? For example, with Petal, right, you can break Petal, but Lifeweaver is going to leave by the time you do. If you have all 5 people shooting Petal, it should be able to break before Lifeweaver can really reach the top of it. I think that's a fair amount of health to give it. Because 5 people are not going to focus you. Like, unless you're at the highest elos, which I guess, you know, some people are. I'm not even there myself, you know, I'm GM5, I'm not GM1. They're very separate elos. But even in GM5, I mean, you have 5 people focus a wall like quite a lot of the time, because, you know, if you wall off a tank, you kind of have to break that wall to go save your tank. And a lot of the time, that wall just doesn't break in time, even with all 5 people focusing it, which I think is a bit of a problem. I think it's a bit too much, and it's very rare to even break a wall in general, unless you have a high damage dealer like Bastion or Junkrat or something, which I think is a bit problematic. I think if you lower it a bit, it's completely fine and non-problematic. I think boosting yourself up, boosting your teammates up, kind of putting a wall in a 1v1 or 1v2 to kind of block off the enemy so you can run away, also completely fine. And even blocking off like the enemy tank from his team or something if they overextend, I think is also completely fair. I just think the amount of health it has and the fact that if you block off the team, they're basically blocked off until the wall is like halfway done. I think that's a little bit too long, and you have to maybe lower that window a bit more. So if they focus it down, and it's not, you know, and it's separating one guy from the rest of the team while the rest of the team's still there, I think it's less fair. But I think, for example, if the team's split, you know, let's say you have 2 flankers and then 3 people in the front line being like, I don't know, let's say you have like a BAP, Kree, and Ryan in the front line, you separate the Ryan from the BAP and Kree. I think it's fair for the Ryan to die there, but I think if there's like a, let's say a BAP, you know, Kree, Soldier, Kiriko, and Ryan all together, and then you separate the Ryan, and he dies while holding shield and just sitting in the corner while they're trying to break wall, I don't think that's a fair amount of health to have, and that's kind of closer to where it's at right now. I think it's more fair if we bring it over to, like, you know, if everyone focuses the right pillar of it, they can break it. Because you never break the whole wall. It's just not possible without, like, a nanoed bastion or something. Like, you're only gonna break one pillar of, like, the 4 or 5 pillars that make up the whole wall. Like, that's just the truth of it. But with that being said, that's my thoughts on Mei. I think she's mostly fine. You just change the number on her wall, and then she's perfectly fine. It was very solid to play as, has a very unique identity. I think most of the other numbers are in places that make sense. Maybe look at the slow a little bit, but honestly, it's rarely used against me. So, like, you know, it doesn't really matter too much. Outside of bad A-MEI-zing left click all the time, but now at this point, the right click does so much more damage that most of the better A-MEI-zings just use right click instead. With that out of the way, though, I've genuinely talked about everything I wanted to talk about with this character, and I hope y'all have a great rest of your day.